Hey you guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Sarah, and in this video I'm going to show you how I make this really sweet bunny felt busy book activity page. You can see this is what it's going to look like. It comes with a little carrot that the rabbit can hold under his arms. His little ears flop and there's little things behind it, little bird and a little bee. You can do a little peekaboo with his arms and his feet wiggle. It's just a really cute activity page. Let me show you how I make it. As always, I start off with an 8" by 8" sheet of felt. I am using my 1.2 millimeter Korean felt for this page. Usually I just use a less expensive cheaper 1 millimeter piece of felt that I get from Amazon for my pages, but because this one has buttons sewn into it, I'm going to use that thicker felt just to add a little bit of strength to make sure that those buttons can never rip off or break through the felt. So I'm going to use a nice light blue color. I've got all my pieces here cut out already. I've cut out by hand a piece of brown and green felt and I've sewn them together. And I've cut a little slit. This was all done by hand for the carrot to stick inside. And I'm going to start by sewing my little rabbit in place before I sew this whole brown and green piece down onto the page. I'm going to sew my rabbit in place. So I'm going to kind of just place his body there. And I'm going to kind of get his arms tucked underneath. I'm going to sew around the whole head, not sew down the ears because I want them to be able to flop. And then I will lift up the arms and sew around the body. Next, I'm going to sew these little feet down, and I'm going to just sew the top part of this brown piece onto the blue 8" by 8" square of felt. I'm not going to sew around the whole border because I'm going to be sewing around the border anyways at the end. So to save myself time, I'll just sew it then. And then there will be some excess of these pieces because I just cut out these pieces by hand. I didn't have a template or measure them out. I just cut them out freehand. So I'm going to be trimming off the excess that overlaps the page. And then I'm going to sew in these cute little buttons behind the ears. Now that I've got those buttons sewn on, I'm going to start preparing to get the backside attached. So I've taken another 8" by 8" sheet of felt and I've just wrapped it in this cute fabric just to add some interest to the backside of the page. And I'm going to, I have this 3 millimeter thick piece of binding felt that I always used to use as my binding piece. I just sew it in between the front and the back piece, and I just cut it by freehand with a scallop edge fabric scissors that I have. If you're new to my page, this is how I make busy books for children. So let me give you an example here. I just use those binding pieces to connect the pages with binder rings so that it makes little busy books. So that's what you can make with this. So I'm going to be putting that in between the two pages, sewing around the border. But first, I'm going to grab a string or a piece of suede felt, and I'm going to hot glue that onto the back of my page. And if you've seen a lot of my other videos and you follow me, you'll see that I do this as well. I apply big globs of hot glue in behind the buttons to just add extra security so that those buttons never come off the page. I use really thick felt and then I put hot glue on the backs of that, or sorry, I use really thick thread, I should say. I use thick thread to sew them on, and then I tie them in knots, and then I use hot glue just to make sure they never move and they never come out. Even if the felt were to rip, like if you pulled so hard on that button that the felt ripped, it would still, the button itself would still be attached to the string, which is knotted in and then hot glued in. So just taking every precaution to make sure that those stay on there. And then I'm going to just push that down and connect it to the back side with the binding piece in. I'm going to go ahead and just sew around the whole border. That completes the sewing for this page. I also just went ahead and used my heavy duty hole punch to hole punch 2 holes into the side of the felt. I'm going to put my sewing machine away and I'm going to just hot glue on the features of the face. And I also cut by freehand this little green leaf topping. That's for the carrot. I'll glue that in place. And then I'm going to trim this string. I've got a little bit much, or the suede cord. I'm going to be hot gluing that inside the carrot. I need a little more hot glue, and I'm just going to apply hot glue and glue it to the other side of the carrot attached to that suede cord. I like to really make my pages so that nothing can get lost, so everything stays attached to the page. So that's the whole point of the suede cord. If you don't care about that, then I would skip the whole suede cord thing, but this way it just stays attached to the page and the child is still able to move it around and put it in the bunny's hands and then put it back in the ground, pull it in and out of the ground. Okay, let's glue on the features of the face. Now that that's all glued on, I'm going to hot glue on some pre-cut felt flowers that I buy from my local dollar store. Felt flowers are always easy to find at craft stores because they always have just felt flowers. You can't find pre-cut felt a lot of other things, but you can always find pre-cut felt flowers. So when I find some cute ones, I always grab them and I always end up using them somewhere. So I'm just going to hot glue those onto the front of the page. You can make a template for the flowers and cut them out yourself, but flowers are the one thing that I always just buy from the dollar store because they just save you so much time that it's worth it to just use those. But if you wanted to make your own as well, you can. Last but not least, I'm going to use my fabric paint and I'm just going to squeeze and paint on some little pink paw prints on the bottom of the bunny's feet. I just have to wait for that paint to dry, so I'll be careful with it, but this little bunny has really cute wiggling arms and feet. They can do peekaboo, and then the carrot can come out from the ground. They can hold it, and then their ears also flop down, and there's a couple little critters behind the ears. For fun, let me show you all the pages that I've made. I've made 12 so far today. Okay, I won't show you all of them because some of them are still drying, but in case you're wondering, these pages, each one cost about $4 in materials. That does include a 50-cent charge for using my cutting mats because you have to replenish those regularly. They lose their stickiness eventually. The materials just by themselves, if you didn't use a cutting mat, would be about $3.50. I can make 3 of these in 1 hour, assuming I'm making them in bulk. When I make them in bulk, I'm able to make them much more quickly. I'll have the template available that I use to make these in bulk, to make 12 copies at a time with the minimum number of cuts on the cutting machine. That template that I use is available on my Patreon, DIY BusyBooks, if you want to check that out. I also have a ton of free single-use printable PDF templates available on my website, Bambino BusyBooks. You can check those out as well. You're free to use those. And I'm always adding more, both to my website and to my Patreon. So please check those out if you'd like. Okay, thanks so much, you guys. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video.